What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Respectfully, You're the Problem, the podcast where we stop blaming everyone else for our problems long enough to realize we might be contributing to them. I'm your host, Caroline, and today, got a real treat for you. We're talking about modern dating. God help us all. Dating has been near and not so dear to my heart for almost a decade now. I've survived dating apps. I've survived situationships. I've survived men who had absolutely no concept of what self awareness is. Now, before anybody gets defensive, this episode is not about bashing men or women. Respectfully, y'all are exhausting. But here's what I've realized. Dating didn't suddenly get harder because everyone woke up one morning and collectively lost their minds. Something changed. And I don't think most people realize how much technology has quietly rewired the way we experience dating. And I want to kick off this episode with one of my own personal dating app horror stories. So, this was early in my dating app era, back when the apps were still relatively new. I was young, naive, hopeful, still believed that people were honest on the internet. What a little precious idiot I was. Now, we'll use pseudonyms because although these people permanently live in my dating trauma hall of fame, they're still human. So let's call him Jeff. So Jeff and I match. He's tall, brunette, 5 o'clock shadow, fit. His pictures were of him as a male cheerleader for a local college. And immediately, my first thought was, okay, I could get tossed around a little bit. His profile wasn't over the top. There was no corny inspirational quote, no I'm fluent in sarcasm, no shirtless mirror selfie or him holding a fish. So I thought, all right, Jeff, let's see what you've got. So we plan a date, dinner, then a movie. His dinner suggestion, Five Guys. Sir, we're adults. But I ignored it because back then I was trying so hard to be the chill girl. You know her. She pretends everything's fine, never asks for too much, never wants to seem high maintenance. And we'll unpack that in another episode because there is so much there that we need to address. So, anyways, I get dressed, hair done, makeup done, looking cute, like cute. And I get to Five Guys. It's Friday night, it's busy. I text him, I'm here. He says, I'm walking in now. And I look up, and through the crowd, I see this man lock eyes with me and start making a beeline towards me. And I'm thinking, oh, this must be Jeff. Now, technically, he wasn't a catfish. It was Jeff, just about 10 years and 30 pounds later, wearing one of those stiff leather jackets that Tom Cruise wore in Mission Impossible, but he didn't have a motorcycle. And his beard was less rugged and more Duck Dynasty. And I don't think men realize that a beard and like the different ways you style it, the length and whatnot, can absolutely basically make you a catfish. Okay, and before you jump on me, women too, they can accomplish this with extensive makeup, but this is about beards. So, quick side story. I briefly dated a guy who had a beard and what looked like a nice jawline. And one day, without warning me, he shaved it completely and just left the mustache. And upon seeing him, my lady bits immediately took a vacation to the desert and the ick was undeniable. I didn't even, I couldn't. And listen, I tried to look past it, okay? And it's super shallow, but Y'all, he looked like a different person. A person that I would have absolutely said, "It's gonna be a no from me, dog," had he presented this to me initially. And listen, I know that's shallow, okay? But let's be real. Attraction is a giant part of relationships. Don't act like you don't agree. Okay, anyways, back to Jeff. I am speechless upon seeing him. But here's the worst part. He walks up smiling, looking absolutely thrilled. Why? Probably because I looked exactly like my pictures. And I know what you're thinking. Leave, run, fake an emergency. Trust me, I considered it. Then the very first thing out of this man's mouth was, "Wow, you actually showed up." Excuse me? What do you mean? I actually showed up. He goes, "Yeah, I've planned a few dates recently and none of the girls actually showed up." Jeff, buddy, respectfully, I think I know why. They probably saw your catfishing ass walking towards them, did a U turn, and escaped. Lucky bitches. But my bleeding heart and empathy kicked in. I felt bad. So I thought, you know what? I can eat a burger. I can survive a movie. So we get our food, and let me tell you, once I realized this was not going anywhere, I stopped pretending to eat cute. I demolished that burger like I was alone in the comfort of my own home in my Adam Sandler clothes. And during dinner, we're discussing a plethora of topics. One of them was cars. I make a comment about how drivers have certain personalities that always seem to fit the car that they're driving. For example, BMW drivers are the worst. This is real. These people are the equivalent of that one person at a dinner party confidently over explaining how the world works, often wrong, but somehow never in doubt. They obnoxiously think everyone has gathered there for their TED Talk and will take any pause as an opportunity just to be heard or just to cut you the fuck off in the middle of what you were saying. These are BMW drivers. And if this offends you, you're who we're talking about. And respectfully, I don't give a fuck because I have been blessed with pattern recognition. Those of you who also have been bestowed with this amazing gift, you know what I'm talking about. And once you notice a pattern, you can't unsee it. So, BMWs, drivers, that's what I think of you. All right. Okay, I'll hop off my soapbox, get back to the story. So we finish dinner. He offers to drive us both to the movie theater. It's just across the street. So we're walking to his car. And of course, it's a BMW. I just start laughing. I apologized and said, "Hey, like made a comment about BMW drivers. I didn't know you drove one. I'm so sorry." And he was like, "No, it doesn't bother me." Sir, yes, it did. I'm just too hot that you don't want to risk pissing me off because you think you're getting lucky later. Pretty privilege is a thing, and I won't deny that. And I absolutely lean into it sometimes. Anyways, the movie itself, fantastic. Mainly because neither of us had to talk for 2 hours. Then he drives me back to my car. And right before I go to get out, he says, "I just want you to know I had such a great time and I'm really relieved because you look exactly like your pictures." I can't make this shit up. The audacity. My empathy left my body immediately. I looked at him and said, "Well, I'm glad you think so because you don't look anything like yours." This man looked shocked. He goes, "Really? That is me." I said, "I know it's you. It's just you from about a decade ago. You should probably update your pictures." And honestly, that's probably why those other girls never showed up. I'm dead ass. He just stared at me, completely confused. Like, it never dawned on him that pictures from a decade ago and when he weighed much less, somehow he didn't think that would be an issue upon meeting in real life. I can't. So, thank God we were already at my car. I got out. I told him to drive safe. And I went home thinking this online dating thing is going to be one hell of a ride. And here's the funny part, looking back, Jeff wasn't actually the biggest problem. He was just my introduction to understanding human psychology and my crash course in the dating hell that was to come. The more I began to read up on human psychology, human behavior, and really just going through the trenches of online dating, everything about modern dating started to make more sense. Like, the more that I read and understood, the more that I could see, okay, like, yeah, it can kind of help me navigate through these waters. So today, let's talk about why dating feels so different now and what our brains have to do with all of it. Because I am a huge psychology buff. I believe in backing everything up with the facts. And so we're going to dig into it and we're going to have all of it supported with psychological facts. So these apps have completely shifted the way that we date. And here's the crazy part, it actually has very little to do with the actual apps. It has everything to do with your brain. See, dating apps don't just connect people, they're designed to keep your attention. And they do that by using the exact same psychology that casinos use. Yeah, you're basically pulling a slot machine every time you swipe. Think about it. You swipe. Nope. Swipe. Absolutely not. You swipe again. Oh, he's kind of cute. You swipe. Ew. Swipe. Match. And the second you get that little notification, it's a match. Your brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine. And now here's what's important. People throw that word dopamine around all the time, but they usually explain it wrong. Dopamine isn't the chemical that makes you happy. It's the chemical that makes you want. It creates anticipation, motivation, curiosity. It's a little voice in your head that goes, okay, one more. And psychologists have known about this for decades. And one of the strongest ways to get someone hooked on behavior is something called variable reinforcement, which is just a fancy way of saying you never know when you're going to get rewarded. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. And because your brain can't predict it, it keeps trying. It's why people get addicted to slot machines. It's why people endlessly refresh social media. And it's why some people spend 3 hours on Hinge. I am 100% guilty of that. So your brain starts chasing possibility, not connection, possibility. Because maybe the next swipe is your soulmate. Or maybe it's just another guy holding a fish. And here's where modern dating quietly changes. Dating used to require patience. You meet someone, you got curious, you slowly figured each other out. Now, we've replaced curiosity with instant gratification. We've convinced ourselves that if this person isn't perfect in the first 30 seconds, there must be somebody better, one swipe away. And that's the dangerous part. There always is another swipe, which means your brain never feels finished. It never says, I've had enough, because the app keeps whispering, but what if the next one's better? Respectfully, that's not dating anymore. That's emotional gambling. And once you understand that, a lot of people's behavior suddenly starts making a whole lot more sense. Because if your brain is constantly convinced that there is someone better waiting just around the corner, one swipe away, why would you ever sit and invest in the person sitting right in front of you? And that's exactly where modern dating starts to fall apart. That's the breakdown. So now we've got brains that are addicted to possibility. But it gets worse because dating apps didn't just give us more people, they gave us too many people. Your brain absolutely sucks at handling unlimited choices. I know that sounds backwards. We all think more choices mean we'll find someone better. Psychologists have actually studied this, and they found this is something called choice overload. Basically, the more options we're given, the harder it becomes to actually choose one. And even when we do choose, we're usually less satisfied with our decision. Why? Because we're constantly wondering, did I pick the best one? What if I keep looking? Think about it. Have you ever gone to a restaurant with a 6-page menu? Cheesecake Factory, I'm calling you out. You sit there for 20 minutes. You finally order. And then you see the waitress walking by carrying someone else's food, and suddenly you're like, damn, I should have gotten that. Now imagine that, except instead of chicken Alfredo, it's another human being. That's dating now. We've convinced ourselves that having thousands of options is freedom. But psychologically, it creates anxiety instead. Because making one choice means giving up every other possibility. And humans hate closing doors. We love to keep our options open, even when those options aren't actually making us happier. That's why people have conversations with 15 different people and somehow complain that nobody is serious anymore. Bestie, respectfully, you're the reason nobody's serious. You can't build intimacy while you're running 15 potential relationship job interviews. Relationships require attention, presence, investment, and all of those things become so much harder when your brain is constantly wondering if someone is hotter, funnier, 6 inches taller, one swipe away. This is what psychologists call maximizing behavior. Some people are what they call satisfiers, meaning they'll find someone who's genuinely compatible and they'll build a life together. Other people are maximizers. They're always chasing the absolute best option. The problem with that, research consistently shows that maximizers usually end up, surprise, surprise, less happy and less satisfied. Not because the choices they make are worse, but because they spend their lives wondering if they could have made a better choice. And dating apps have quietly turned a lot of us into maximizers. We've stopped asking, is this person kind? Do they make me laugh? Can we build something together? And we've started asking, could I do better? That's a dangerous question because better doesn't have an ending. There's always someone richer, always someone hotter, funnier, more successful, better looking, better pictures, better bio, better vacation photo. There's no finish line. So instead of appreciating the person sitting across from us, we're mentally shopping while they're talking to us. And before you know it, we've traded commitment for comparison. We've traded curiosity for consumption. And that's when people stop looking for connection and they start treating dating like they're shopping on Amazon, which is exactly what I want to talk about next. So, first, our brains get addicted to possibility. Then we get overwhelmed by the unlimited choices. And now We've reached the point where we've accidentally turned human beings into products. Think about the last time you were on a dating app. How long did you actually spend looking at each profile? 5 seconds? Maybe 10? Your brain made a decision about someone's entire worth faster than it takes to microwave a Hot Pocket. And psychologists have studied this too. Our brains naturally make what's called thin slice judgments. It's really just a fancy way of saying we make incredibly fast assumptions about people based on very little information. We scroll so fast down a profile to check the pictures, a brief skim of the bio, done. Your brain has already decided whether they're funny, confident, boring, successful, or completely undateable, all within seconds. Now, sometimes those first impressions are right. I will say I have called the right type based on their profile many times. But a lot of the time, they're completely wrong because human beings are terrible at accurately judging other human beings that quickly. And dating apps have forced us to do exactly that. Instead of discovering someone, we evaluate them. Instead of getting curious, we judge. Instead of asking, I wonder who this person is, we ask, are they good enough? And let's be honest, we have all done this. The love of your life might have been 3 swipes ago, and you rejected him because his first picture was taken in very bad lighting. Again, I can't pretend that I'm not like this. I am aware, but I'm healing, and it's just the way of the world and the way humans just tick. And then there's something called the halo effect. Basically, if we find someone physically attractive, our brains automatically assume they have other good qualities too. They're probably smarter, kinder, funnier, more successful, more emotionally mature. Spoiler alert, they're not. They're just hot. We've all dated somebody because they were very attractive. And somewhere around month 3, you're sitting there thinking, you're actually kind of an idiot. Looks gave them the interview, their personality usually gets them fired. And the opposite happens too. Sometimes we overlook incredible people because they weren't immediately our type. Because attraction isn't always instant. Attraction grows, attraction builds. Sometimes the funniest, kindest, and most emotionally available person in the room isn't the one who grabs your attention first. And that's something dating apps don't really give us the time to discover. Even if they did, our attention span is about 7 seconds, so we probably wouldn't utilize it anyways. They've trained us to believe chemistry should happen immediately, and that if there aren't fireworks in 30 seconds, it must not be right. But psychology tells us something different. Familiarity creates attraction. Shared experiences create attraction. Safety creates attraction. Trust creates attraction. Real intimacy is usually built slowly, not downloaded in someone's bio. And then we expect instant perfection. We miss real people because real people are messy, awkward, nervous. Sometimes they tell bad jokes. Sometimes they choose to take you to Five Guys for a first date. The point is, they're human. And somewhere along the way, we forgot how to date humans. We started shopping for them instead. And once people become products, it's a whole lot easier to throw them away. Which is exactly why ghosting has become such a big problem. Now, before anyone gets offended, I'm not saying ghosting is okay. It's immature, it's inconsiderate, grow up, use your words. But I do think it's important to understand why it's become so normal. Because 20 years ago, if you met someone, there usually was some level of accountability. Maybe your friend introduced you guys. Maybe you work together. Maybe your families knew each other. And if you disappeared, people would notice. There would have been consequences. Now, you match with somebody who lives, 23 miles away, whose last name you don't even know. Your lives never overlap. You have no mutual friends, no shared community, no accountability. So your brain doesn't treat the relationship with the same weight. Psychology calls this dehumanization. When we don't feel connected to someone's humanity, it becomes much easier to ignore how our actions affect them. It's the same reason people say things online that they would never say to somebody's face. Shout out to all my keyboard warriors. Y'all need a life and your ass kicked, but let's stay on topic. Distance creates emotional detachment, and emotional detachment makes empathy non existent. Again, that doesn't make ghosting okay. It just explains why it's happening so much. But then there's ghosting's distant cousin, the situationship. Where you talk to someone every day, you're even sleeping together, you're meeting each other's friends, sharing locations, using each other's Netflix account. And then 6 months into this, whatever this is, somebody asks, "So, what are we?" And the other person suddenly acts like they've been served legal papers. Psychologically, this gets really interesting because your brain isn't falling in love with consistency. Your brain has become addicted to uncertainty. There's a psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement. And honestly, it's one of the strongest ways to create an emotional attachment. Think about it. One day, they're obsessed with you. Good morning texts, phone calls, compliments, future plans, and you think, oh my God, this is it. Then they disappear for 2 days, maybe three, and your anxiety kicks in, and you're wondering, what happened? Did I do something? Should I text them? Then, out of nowhere, your phone lights up. Hey, sorry, I've been busy. And suddenly you feel relief. Not because the relationship is healthy, but because the anxiety finally stopped. Your brain rewards the relief, not the person, the relief. That's why people stay stuck in these cycles. They're chasing the emotional high that comes after the emotional crash. It's the same psychological pattern that keeps people at slot machines thinking the next one will be a big win. And here's where social media has absolutely lost its mind. I watched a video the other day of a woman telling men, if a woman tells you what she wants and she tells you she wants emotional stability, consistency, good manners, don't believe her because she's lying to herself. This disgusting excuse for a woman is telling these men that if they want a woman's attention, to not create stability, but create scarcity because scarcity triggers obsession. No shit, you deeply traumatized, wounded, anxious attachment, toxic gremlin. Pick up a psychology book, or better yet, go to therapy because that is what attracts your wounded ass. Healthy, healing, grown ass women or men will pick up on that shit so quick and Sparta kick that turd all the way back to the pilot episode of this trauma saga. Emotionally mature people want consistency, communication, safety. Because here's the truth, if someone has to manipulate your nervous system to keep your attention, you need to reassess your attachment style and why you need the emotional spike to preserve attraction. Or on the flip side, If you need to manipulate someone into being attracted to you need to recalibrate and figure out where in your childhood that coping mechanism was born because it's not healthy and it's not going to work out in your favor. Which brings me to what I think is one of the biggest problems in dating today. Everybody on the internet is handing out dating advice without realizing they're teaching their own wounds. And this is where the internet has completely lost the plot. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has dating advice. Your aunt, your coworker, the divorce guy with 3 DUIs, the girl on TikTok recording videos in the front seat of her car, acting like she's cracked the code on human behavior because one emotionally unavailable man texted her back after she ignored him for 3 days. Everybody has advice. Very few people understand psychology. And here's why that matters. Psychologists talk about something called projection. Projection is when we assume other people think, feel, and operate the same that we do. We naturally use ourselves as a measuring stick. It's human nature. But it's also why dating advice is so contradictory because people aren't teaching what's universally healthy. They're teaching what worked on them. I saw another video telling women, post another guy on your story. Make him jealous. He'll come running. Maybe if he's emotionally immature or possessive or insecure, a healthy guy, he'll probably think, well, good luck to the both of you, and move on with his day. Different ways people operate in this way is called attachment theory. And we have so much to cover in this area, but I'll kind of give you the rundown. So, very generally speaking, people tend to fall into different attachment patterns. Some are secure, some are anxious, and some are avoidant. And every one of those groups experiences dating completely differently. Someone with an anxious attachment style might mistake inconsistency for chemistry. Because again, the scarcity will trigger obsession. The further someone pulls away, they get anxious. So they start grabbing and grasping and clutching even harder. The rush they feel when somebody finally texts back after disappearing for 2 days, not because it's healthy, but because their nervous system has learned to chase that relief. Now, someone who's avoidant might hear, I really like you, and immediately want to disappear into the woods. Meanwhile, someone who is secure is sitting there thinking, or we could just communicate. Imagine that. That's why there's not one size fits all dating advice that almost never works. Because healthy people, unhealthy people, anxious people, avoidant people don't respond to the same behaviors. And here's something I wish people understood more. Stop asking, how do I get someone to like me? And start asking, what kind of person would this advice actually attract? Because those are two completely different questions. If your strategy is based on manipulation, you're probably going to attract someone who's very comfortable with playing games. If your strategy is based on authenticity, you'll probably repel those people who love drama. Good. Let them leave. They are saving you time. I'll use myself as an example. When I met my boyfriend, I messaged him first. We met on an app, and I messaged him first. I know my ladies out there just gasped. And according to half the internet, I apparently ruined my feminine energy forever. But I didn't care. I thought he was so cute. So I told him. Literally, by dead ass, my first message to him was, "You're cute as fuck," with a heart eye emoji. That was it. There was no strategy. There was no waiting 3 business days. There was no pretending I was too busy. I was just myself. And it worked, not because I followed some magic rule, but because authenticity filters people faster than manipulation ever will. If someone doesn't like the real you, good. Now you know. Instead of wasting 6 months pretending to be someone else, now you know. Now, before somebody clips this for TikTok, am I saying that every relationship is that easy? Absolutely not. Timing matters, life circumstances matter, emotional maturity sure as hell matters more than all of it. This especially goes for my men out there. And I've got to pick on you a little bit because science says so. Men between the ages of 18 and probably about 25 to 28, their frontal lobe in those sweet little brains are not fully developed. Why is that important? Because the frontal lobe is responsible for things like long term planning, impulse control, prioritizing what's important, risks versus reward, emotional regulation. Their sweet little brains haven't fully developed this critical part until their mid to late 20s. Some, it seems, it may have never developed, but then I think we're treading into self awareness arena and accountability needs to be present. But regardless of age, people tell you exactly who they are through their actions. Listen to that, not the fantasy that you've built in that pretty little head of yours. Because the healthiest relationships are not built on games, they're not built on mystery, and they aren't built on pretending not to care. They're built on two emotionally mature people who decided to stop interviewing for the next best option. And I think that's the biggest thing dating apps have made us forget. Connection is not something you find, it's something you build. So, where does all of this leave us? We've talked about choice overload, we've talked about ghosting, situationships, attachment styles, and why half of the internet is confidently giving relationship advice they probably need to share with their therapist before releasing into the wild. But if you remember one thing from today's episode, I hope it's this: dating apps suck, but dating apps didn't create broken people, they amplified broken patterns. They work against us in the way that they were designed to be addictive, designed to constantly keep us chasing the dopamine. And knowing this, I hope I can help you navigate through the jungle of the apps a little bit easier because I've been there, honey. And I will do what I can to make it a little more palatable for my fellow soldiers out here in the trenches. And we're going to cover a lot more on this topic, so stick around. I am here to be your honest big sister and tell you what nobody told me and what nobody is telling you. And what I'm telling you that you need first and foremost is self awareness. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: the quality of your relationships will almost never exceed the quality of your self awareness. If you don't understand your own fears, you'll project them onto other people. If you don't understand your own attachment wounds, you'll keep calling the chaos chemistry. If you don't heal your own patterns, you'll keep attracting different people with the same problems, just wearing a different face. And that's why I'm here. Not to teach you how to manipulate someone into loving you, not to give you some magical 3-step formula that will make your ex come crawling right back. Respectfully, I don't care about helping you win the game. I care about helping you stop playing it. Because when you become emotionally healthy, you stop asking, how do I get someone to choose me? And you start asking, is this someone I should be choosing? And that changes everything. So this week, I want you to pay attention, not just to the people you're dating or in a relationship with, but to yourself first. Notice the stories you're telling yourself. Notice what triggers you. Notice the red flags you may be ignoring, and the healthy behaviors you tend to call boring. Awareness always comes before change. And if this episode made you laugh, made you think, or made you feel personally attacked, then I did my job. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you'd share with someone who's navigating this absolute dumpster fire we call modern dating. Leave a comment. I genuinely want to hear your experiences, your perspectives. I do read them. And if you're enjoying the podcast, leaving a 5-star review is one of the best ways to help more people find it. It takes less than a minute and it genuinely makes a huge difference. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. I'll see you next week for another episode and we will work on our shit together.